Cool.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for watching our YouTube clip, Stories from the Frontline. Today we've got a special guest, Garth Norman. Garth is joining us. He is a number of things, I'm sure, in his life, but one of the things he is a recent member of the Wellington NAWIC Chapter Committee, and also currently in a training role with BCITO, shifting into a new training role, which I'll let him tell you about. So kia ora, Garth, welcome.
Kia ora, good to be here.
How about you just take a minute just to tell everybody about yourself? So what's your current role? What are you doing?
Yeah, so my current role, I work in sort of strategic industry relationships regarding training and sort of growth of training within industry at BCITO. And I'm about to move over to do similar work, a little more school focused at the electrical training company, otherwise known as ETCO. So that's a bit about me. Yeah.
What got you into this training, in construction type role? How did you land here?
Pure accident. It was a conversation that I had with a person I had worked with some years prior. I was actually working in hospitality at the time, and they said, "Oh, come work with us. We need good customer support advisors." And very shortly in my time of working in vocational training, I came to understand just what I had missed out on in my experience at high school, which is I went to a high school where if you were in gateway programs or if you were considering the trades, you were a bit of a write-off.
Yeah.
So not only that, but I just didn't know that they were an option. So a few months working at BCITO, I fell in love with the mission and the goals, and yeah.
Rest is history.
Rest is history. Yeah.
You know what? I love it. And it's not unusual, Garth. You've probably heard the stories yourself because you're involved in the committee and you really are on this journey with NAWIC. And you hear the stories, right, of how many people accidentally fell into construction because they didn't know it was an option, or it wasn't visible to them as an option, or they didn't see themselves in the sector. So fascinating. So what do you love about what you do? You've already talked about falling in love about, but just expand on that a bit. Like, what do you love about it?
I love that I'm in a position where I can influence change. I thrive off relationship building in my work, and I'm very fortunate to be in a position where that is 90% of what I do. And a lot of those relationships are focused on where we can best influence change in having more diverse groups of people in the workforce, solving labour shortages, training shortages, tackling those kinds of issues. It's quite fulfilling. It fills the cup.
Fantastic. It's great to go somewhere for work every day that fills your cup, right? Yeah, that's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about what you'd like to see for the future of women in construction or diversity in construction, however you want to answer that question.
I'll start with women in construction specifically. There are often conversations about how women make up 50% of the workforce and yet represent, I think, is it 2% of people on the tools in the trades? And I know that NAWIC represents both the on the tools and more office architect engineer side. But for me, seeing a much more accurate representation of the kind of diversity that is just in the world, in the workforce, it's to me, it's not just better for industry, it's better for the women who may not currently in their lives know that that's an option, or may not see it as a safe option. So what I want to see for women in construction is that it's natural for a woman to think, oh yes, construction's not only a viable option for me, it's a safe option for me, that there's not that concern that a lot of people have around sexual harassment, which is still very much a real and valid concern to have, unfortunately. And also, as I say, having that diverse those diverse types of thought, they just create much more robust outcomes for projects, people, and businesses. It's like a rising tide lifts all ships, and the only ones that sink are the ones that are faulty.
That's fantastic. That's such a really well-rounded perspective. And interestingly enough, not only does sexual harassment still exist, as we've seen this latest project by Wahanga Araro, which has been fantastically spearheaded by them and others in the sector, but also, unfortunately, at far too many high schools, I believe that still exists. Do you agree with that? With what you experienced, as in it's not a visible option?
Yeah, so I may go a little bit on a tangent here, but my experience of going to an all-boys high school is, in some ways, I think it's just pure chance that I didn't wind up like a lot of men who behave in those ways. So that's my little personal plug about single-sex high schools not being good for social development. But more to the point, sexual harassment in high schools is rife.
Yeah.
The school that I went to almost a decade ago now, a few years after I left, there was a private Facebook page that became public, and then when the girls from a neighboring school wanted to organize a protest, people threatened to assault and run them over with their cars. And it's pervasive, it's everywhere, and it's not just in the big moments that we all see in the news. It's in the smaller conversations and just the way that people sort of conduct themselves on a daily basis. And I mean, that's getting quite big for two people to talk about by themselves, but it is a real sea change that needs to happen across all of society, I think.
Well, we can all do what we can do. And I think that's what I love about what you're saying, is that you're right. It is a bigger conversation than you and I on a lunchtime. But, if we're, as you and I and other individuals and pairs of people and groups of people, are having those conversations and all doing their little bit, like you're doing your bit, I'm doing my bit, and everybody else who raises their voice in the sector is doing their bit. And together, like you say, we can do something together if we move together in the same direction. We want the same things. I mean, what you've said is going to resonate with a lot of people. They're big conversations, and really thanking you for weighing in on this conversation and just showcasing how, hopefully the watcher will see and be inspired, about how you're connecting in, how you're doing your bit, because the sector is trade tools based, it's office based, it's a hybrid based, it's training, it's vocational education, it's high school education. There's so many facets. And what's been lovely today, Garth, is to have you in from that training and weighing in on that conversation in that way. So we're almost out of time, but is there anything else that you wanted to leave the listeners with, or any thoughts about how people can be part of that conversation?
One thought that I want to leave any men watching with is a couple of things. One, join NAWIC. It's similar to how 50% of the workforce is not involved in hands-on construction because they're women. The same doesn't have to be true of men joining NAWIC. You need that other half of the voice to actually have everyone at the table and have the change, because it's not just about having women in construction, it's about having men behaving or just welcoming women into construction. So I think having men at the table of NAWIC is so important. And one other thought that I would leave people with is that when we talk about the phrase toxic masculinity, and that's a really charged phrase, it doesn't need to be, because literally all it is talking about behaviors that a person may not even be aware of. I do it myself, and they're behaviors that don't actually benefit anyone at the end of the day. It's not about the person, it's about the behavior. So if any men out there listening to this have ever been told that their behavior is toxic before, that's not you. That's just things that you've picked up along the way that don't necessarily need to stay the way they are. So yeah,
Fantastic.
that's
I absolutely, yeah, look, I love that. I concur. Things don't have to stay the way they are. What a great note to end on. So thank you so much, Garth, for taking the time out and joining me on this lunch break today to share your thoughts. And for anybody listening, yep, join NAWIC. We have other male champions who have joined us who want to be part of the change at this level. And we welcome members from all walks of life. You all have value to bring an organisation like ours. So that's all from us. Ka kite anō.
Ka kite.